and welcome to the first inauguration of Open Playground, a community production here at Open Signal. I am your beloved host and community media director, KatMeow García, and I am so very excited to tell you about different things that are going on at Open Signal where you can get involved and come and make community productions. We've got things like cohort programs going on. We've got things like studio production classes that get you certification and all kinds of other fun and interesting ways to get involved. You can go to Open Signal on the web to find out more on our events page, www.opensignalpdx.org, to find out more on how you can get involved. And if you want to just become a supporting member, you can do that too. There's lots of ways you can help out and make sure that these kinds of shows can keep on going long into the future to create that legacy of community media that you know and love and we know and love. I am so excited tonight because we have a very special guest. One of our cohort participants actually is here to share with us about their art and what inspires them and what have you. Welcome, A.T.Lamar.
Hello.
Thank you so much for coming.
My pleasure.
Could you just tell us a little bit about your beginnings of art? When did you first start getting involved in making art, and who inspires you along that way?
That goes back as far as my memory goes. I was freestyling at about 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
As soon as I was writing poetry, and which eventually led to me writing my first song at about 7. So throughout trying to push and promote the music, I picked up various other mediums along the way and eventually led into the visual arts here in Portland. I actually did not consider myself a visual artist until I got to Portland.
Oh, wow. So what kind of like shifted your interpretation of your own self as an artist?
Initially, I would always get my poetry attached to someone else's artwork, a painter, and I would collab with them. At some point, I went out with an artist by the name of Shay Shay, and I noticed that some of his characters, who in Atlanta, where I'm from, would be very hard to sell in Atlanta. And here, they were selling. So I pulled out some of my old graphics that I used for mixtape covers, pictures that I took of myself and edited on my phone.
Right, and mixtapes, for all the young people out there, are these like Stone Age tools that we use to record audio.
I mean, it's essentially the same as an album, except it's not for money. So it's for promotional purposes only, which means you can use any beat or instrumental you want to without having to pay for it. So a lot of independent and local artists will use mixtapes as a way to not be sued for making music they can't afford to make.
So you made this mixtape with this collaborator, and then what happened after that?
Well, it wasn't the mixtape. It was me going out.
Oh, it was the
table
graphics
here.
from the
Yeah,
mixtapes.
It was the graphics from
Nice.
it. Mixtapes that couldn't sell at all were selling great out here in Portland as art.
Yeah.
Which led me to make more of the art on my phone, which eventually led to me painting.
Excellent. And are you still doing poetry as well? Because I'm really glad that you brought up that as an art form, because it often gets overlooked, written art. Are you finding that you're still doing poetry while you're now producing, the visual media?
Initially, I was, after losing my cousin, my 19-year-old cousin, Kyrie, words became more difficult.
Sure.
He was my favorite rapper, and he got killed at 19 years old in the studio.
Well, my condolences.
So after that point, coming back to Portland, sitting next to another artist that I invited here from Atlanta, Salim, me and him were sitting on Alberta, and while he was painting, I started to paint as a form of therapy.
Nice.
To release, because I couldn't speak. It was hard.
Well, I feel like that's really important that you're saying that, because I'm pretty sure there are a ton of people who will resonate with going through that grief and that loss and not finding the words. And so I'm sure there are people out watching right now that may pick up paint and do the same that you did to like work through that through a different medium.
Right.
Excellent. So you started painting, sitting there on Alberta painting, and then how did you progress through that? Did you start selling things?
So from that, I've been at Grits and Gravy promoting the art. This was actually one of the first pieces I had displayed in Grits and Gravy. I started to paint in there after A.T. Live. After coming back, I started A.T. Live, Artists Together Live at Grits and Gravy.
Oh, excellent.
And Brandon allowed me the chance to throw my own event there where I can invite other artists to come and paint, sing, dance, whatever it is that they do, and no one is charged for it.
Wow.
They can receive 100% of whatever they sell there.
So there's not a lot of barriers to entry, too, for folks who want to participate?
No barriers whatsoever.
Nice.
It was literally designed for artists like myself, Shay Shay, Salim, and other artists that I know are street artists, living on the streets for the most part, from hotel to Airbnb and things of that nature, not actual stable, to have a chance to let their art be seen, because there is a market for it. There's a crowd, especially here in Portland, where I notice people do appreciate right-brained activity, which is a lot of times where we get labeled as street artists or stuck out of the galleries of the venues because we don't have left-brained analytics to go along with the right-brained.
That's true. I mean, because if we look at like the mainstream art, we see artists like Basquiat, Jean-Michel Basquiat, or Banksy, who are these like more street artists, but very rarely. So they're almost like pedestalizing folks who
or
are
almost like you need an Andy Warhol to be a Basquiat,
right.
And I don't think so.
Right.
And if so, it's time we start changing that now.
I like that. I like that change. I think it'll be really helpful, and I do think that as a society, you know, we're missing out if we're not highlighting art from all different kinds of folks.
Exactly.
We will all rise when everyone's lifted, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that's great. So then you're making art now, and not so much with the poetry, but are there any art fields, art mediums that you're like dabbling in? I know you're part of our cohort here, this cycle with Viva La Free, which can you tell us a little bit about Viva La Free too?
So Viva La Free actually uses their art as medicine. They don't sell any products whatsoever. Their fiscal sponsorship to me at Grits and Gravy was their first time having any product. Their thing is giving back to the community in different ways, through painting classes, through dancing, through exposing a lot of the BIPOC youth to activities they wouldn't be able to afford otherwise, and getting the money from that from supporters and grants rather than trying to sell someone a product.
I really like that. I think, and maybe you agree or disagree, but I've just noticed that there are a lot of fine arts that where BIPOC youth, especially in younger, are not given the agency to even see themselves belonging in that sector at all.
Right.
So it sounds like Viva La Free is an amazing organization to break down that.
Well, as a matter of fact, Lena Lewis and Teresa Rayford were the two people who told me everyone was an artist. Everyone was a painter, because I never saw myself as, like I said, a visual artist. I was surprised that I could sell these graphics that I made on my phone. So when they said that to me, and I was sitting there with Salim, it dawned on me too that maybe I can paint. So that's definitely, if they could do that to me at 30 years old, imagine what that could do to an adolescent that they're telling, well, let's just play with some paint and see, you know.
Yeah, that is excellent to hear, and I'm so moved by it, because youth are our future. And do we want an empowered future with empowered youth, or do we want youth who don't believe in themselves and don't think they can belong?
Right, we definitely want an empowered.
Yeah.
All around the board.
Definitely. Welcome back to Open Playground. We are about to get into my favorite part of this episode of Open Playground, which is talking about the art pieces that Antoine's brought for us today to look at and discuss. So, without further ado, I would love to know about the print that you have in front of you. Do you want to hold it up while we talk, or I can hold it for you if you want, so you can.
Either way. So this is Revealing Connection. The first one and original one, which is the one you're holding in your hand, was a picture that I took of my shadow. I was on set with the artisan company, and I was holding up like the little reflector thing to keep the sun off of the artist.
Yeah.
And it was casting a shadow on the ground. I pulled my phone out. This is elbow bent with me taking the picture.
Oh, wow.
And then I put it on PixArt, an app on my phone, and I put edits to it.
Yeah, because it almost looks like PixArt gave you the opportunity to kind of make this into sort of like almost a linoleum block cut print kind of look. It looks like somebody like printed and rolled it out.
That is one of the effects on like kind of a drawn looking thing. Yeah, that was some of the effects on it. I also used some other pictures I found of wings and put the wings around it. And that piece was also the first piece that I had in Grits and Gravy.
Oh, right on.
It's the first piece that I had on display.
And so you had told me during the break that the little QR code
takes to my website.
Right. That's wonderful. So instead of a signature, we're using technology to kind of like bring us into the future.
Right, and I use the television to represent AT Live.
Nice.
So, but I eventually, once I realized that I'm not bad at drawing like I thought, that I just have to turn the picture upside down, I wanted to paint this because I always wanted to draw or paint it.
Yeah.
But I thought that I couldn't draw. Well, it turns out my brain just interprets the pictures differently.
Yeah.
So this second one here was my first time painting something intentionally that wasn't just completely abstract.
Okay, so this is the second one so it's like this morphs into the next picture.
This one actually finishes this one. It actually shows more of the picture. If you look, this is only showing half.
Oh, wow.
While this one shows the whole thing.
Okay.
So it actually expands upon the picture.
See right down here, there's like there's Antoine's shadow.
Right.
Basically, your shadow. And it's a smaller version of this one. So it's the top.
Right. So if you would, it would be like, well, with the minus the white space there, cuts to there.
That's cool.
So from here holding it up, it's like this part here finishes off the rest of the picture, which shows me moving my eyes and mouth away from the city, my traumas.
Yeah.
To reveal the connection of everything that is also within me.
So like that, you're one with the cosmos kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah, that's awesome. And then you had a third iteration.
So this was me. I was looking to make it better than the second one, but I don't think I did it. This was me painting it again, but I was also adding more three-dimensional into it. The actual painting itself, where you see these lines, is texture and it pops out.
Oh, wow.
As well as the wings have a lot of texture that pops out. And you can kind of see the hand coming from behind here. Now, not only me revealing it, but now bringing in the help from beyond that breaks this wall in between.
And it almost like reminds me of what we were talking about earlier when you were saying that, working with Viva La Free and Teresa Rayford, like giving you that extra little, like, no, you do belong here. Here's these resources. Here's where you can show your art. Is almost like represented by this hand coming out.
Right.
Yeah.
That is not just me able to do it alone, but the help that's coming from beyond as well.
Yeah. Really cool pieces, like really visually interesting, and I like how you use negative space. My eye is just bumping all around these. Like I can't just stay fixated on one thing. Like I want to look at all the little pieces and find new things each time I look at them.
So these two paintings are actually sitting at the Big Legrowski downtown, where I made this piece, Eat the Vibe.
Let's talk about that one. Great segue.
So Eat the Vibe was made in the dark because when I got to the Big Legrowski Tuesday night, Diz told me that someone that only stole the heaters from the outside patio, but they took the adapter switch that goes to the light. They didn't take the lights. They took the adapter switch.
They needed that adapter.
So here, I don't think so. Call me a conspiracy theorist.
I mean,
but I'm not so convinced that everybody's happy about Portland becoming less Eurocentric. The Big Legrowski specifically asked me to come there and set the atmosphere. They want me to paint there, outside on the patio. And some people are complaining about it.
I see.
So when adapter switches go missing, and not the lights, I think someone wants me to do this in the dark, or they thought I couldn't do it.
Right, but
in the
you
dark.
obviously
I told them to eat the vibe.
Yeah.
That's what I told them right there in the dark as I played my jazz music and did this piece, as well as I didn't bring them all. I have the one down there, the primary star wheel was done that night as well.
With the yellow and the red and the blue primary colors.
Right, primary.
Yeah.
Because the Big Legrowski invited me there to bring more universal culture into Portland, right there in downtown. There's all genres, there's all cultures. They want to bring everything into one comfortable space. Unfortunately, everyone doesn't want that.
Sure.
But they have to eat the vibe.
Yeah, they got to eat the vibe. And, I really can appreciate, the word eat in red, which, many folks might not know this, but a lot of advertising companies that are advertising food, they'll use red, they'll use yellow, because in the human brain, what that does is it creates like this, oh, we want to eat now. For some reason, red and yellow. That's why you might see certain fast food chains that I'm not going to name use red and yellow in their logos and what have you. So
ketchup and mustard.
Ketchup and mustard, right? And it's really, it brings you into that space, like, oh, eating. Yeah, I like that. And it's such an interesting story that even though there were no lights, you're just like, whatever, I'm still making this.
Right. Yeah, the fact that there was no lights made me even more determined to paint there. Like, that cemented, I am definitely gonna be there every Sunday and Tuesday, because when things like that happen, that lets me know, oh, this is something that does make an impact here.
Yes.
Someone wants to get in the way of it because of the impact that it might do to the city. Okay, cool, let's do it.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep going then.
Oh yeah.
Lovely.
Oh yeah.
So keep on trying to put those barriers, and we're just gonna keep on breaking them down.
Tearing them down.
Yeah, why
Most
not?
definitely.
Heck yeah, I like that. I did want to definitely touch on, because you spoke about, youth getting involved with art, and oftentimes I've seen, just working with youth in the arts field, that there sometimes can be a lot of frustration around something not turning out exactly how you want it when you're making art. And when you told me the story about this piece, I really was hoping that we could share it with the audience, because I'm sure all of us out there have done some art that it just did not work out.
So this piece represents my entire painting style as a whole. This piece was done because I inspired an artist named Malcolm to do his first painting, and I accidentally stepped in his painting.
Ooh.
So rather than trashing it or getting upset, I told him, hey, I got some bad news and I got some good news. The bad news is I stepped in your first painting. The good news is here's 5 new ones that are our collaborations. We sold 2 of them like this that first day, and the canvas that I actually stepped in, we let it dry just like that, and sold that too as a series we're calling Mistakes and Steps. This is another one that turned into me just taking that shoe and pressing it over the paper and over the canvas.
You're literally printmaking via mistake.
Yeah.
That's super cool.
But we make mistakes and we take steps. When I paint in general, I keep a firm rule that it's okay. It's not a mistake, because what I intended is not as good as what it is, because what is what should be. So I accept what the painting becomes, whether I'm pouring, whether I'm splattering it, whether I'm drawing in a pouring or a splattering. I'm just letting the art be what it is.
Path of least resistance towards art.
Say that again?
The path of least resistance.
Yeah, I'm
towards
working
art.
on living like that. It's not, it hasn't fully translated,
Well, sure.
but it's a beautiful art to do it first and then explain it. Like, people are like, what are you painting? I don't know.
I don't know yet.
We'll see what it comes out. I have no idea,
Is that typically how your process is?
For most of my paintings, yes. Even with Revealing Connection too. When I first started it, I didn't know that I was gonna paint this Revealing Connection under it. So when I first started, you see here, there's a line that kind of cuts through here. Initially, I was drawing the eyes and the mouth, and I had the city over here with the little eyes in the background there. And then I came in one day and decided to draw this on it, and coincidentally, it tapped into subconscious thoughts I was having at the time and blended all into one. But I didn't know that that's what I was doing until after it was done.
You're like learning things about yourself by doing art.
By painting. Actually, it was a artist and psychologist that looked at it and helped me realize more about it than I had even realized. It was looking at it and saying things about it and tapped into my personal life without even knowing.
Wow.
And I didn't even realize that those things were in the painting.
Well, I think that when you are vulnerable is when you're allowing people to see you and love you for who you are. And so when you're being vulnerable and making the art, that person saw pieces of you that maybe you didn't even realize you were putting into there.
Right.
But I think what it also does, apart from like giving people an insight into you, it also, gives them insight into themselves.
Right.
Which is, where we're all connecting
right.
on a human level.
Revealing Connection is the whole piece.
So are there any of the other pieces that you wanted to discuss today as well?
These other pieces we're looking at on here or
like the canvas?
These are what I call warp art.
Warp art.
Warp art. It started digitally as I was making the abstracts on my phone using PixArt using the filters Tiny Planet and mirroring.
Oh, okay.
So a series of tiny planets and mirroring, we get these faces in portal-looking designs.
Wild.
Me, Diamond, his partner Serena, we all started to use this process and create these designs. Eventually, when I started to paint, Shay Shay was inspired to paint these portals. And then I then saw different ways that I could warp the paint, both going in and out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to make portals in different ways. And these are some of the three-dimensional ones that kind of come out and spiral out with texture.
Cool. I want to ask one more question before we wrap up here, and that is, I know you said that Elena Lewis and Teresa Rayford kind of helped you see and find your place in the art and see yourself as an artist. What would you tell like a young Antoine, you know, growing up, to get them to realize that like one day you will be at that place, or to help them realize that they're an artist?
A young Antoine. First thing I tell him is to breathe more. Breathe more. Secondly, I go ahead and give him the life philosophy that took me almost 30 years to discover, which is called going half on all. HALF is an acronym for humility, ambition, loyalty, and faith. And by having all of them, you go half on everything you need. Humility being true confidence, not comparing yourself to others, but comparing yourself to yourself and only to your past. Continuously looking to outgrow and outdo yourself. And by doing so, you become humble to learn from everyone. You realize that everyone has something to offer that they could teach you. Through that humility, you will ground it and you will gain more than someone who does not have confidence and humility. Ambition, faith without works is dead. To have anything, you must do. Every action has an opposite and equal reaction. You reap what you sow. Everything goes around, comes around. You get out what you put in. I feel if every major religion, science, and the hood says the same thing, it then becomes undeniable. So you must put forth the effort. L standing for loyalty. Who you are around matters just as much as what you're doing and what you're thinking. You don't live in a bubble alone. So how the phrase goes, if you're around 5 barbers, you'll become the 6th. If you're around 7 addicts, you'll become the 8th. So you definitely have to watch who you spend your time with, and it's not to put up barriers and keep people away that you may be able to heal or help, but not to spend excessive times in the wrong crowd and environments. And then the F, which definitely wouldn't be last, it just helps me make the word half, but faith. Whether you are religious and you look at it as your belief in God and your belief that God would do for you, or you're scientifical and you look at it as the laws of attraction that says that every thought you have sends out a vibration and that resonates with that frequency, you will attract those things. So by having faith, loyalty, ambition, and humility, you have half of everything you need to have anything. The only thing left is time and space, which I consider as God. But through having that humility, that ambition, that loyalty, and faith, you'll figure the rest out.
All right, so you hear that, folks. You got to have half.
Yeah.
I want to make sure everyone knows that you can get involved at Open Signal to have more programming like this created if you're a talent, if you have art that you want to show off, if you like being on crews, if you have experience on crews, you can get involved. You can call us Tuesday through Friday from 10 to 5 p.m. and Saturday from noon to 7 p.m. at 503-288-1515. Come on and get involved. That number again is 503-288-1515. Come on and play it. Open Playground, or try to get involved at Open Signal however you can. We will meet you where you're at and help you make your media goals come true. Thank you so much for coming on today and sharing with our audience. Really appreciate it. Hope we can have you back again.
Most definitely. If we're not out of time, I actually did have a poem I'd like to recite.
Sure, let's hear that.
This has actually been my most popular piece here in Portland, and it was designed here in Portland, both the poem and the artwork. As I went out with the artist I was telling you about before, Shay Shay, a lot of the people here in Portland were asking for a black woman. Well, where's the picture of the woman? You should draw a black woman. And I didn't know how to draw at the time, so I used an app to create it and then edit it in PixArt to make it my own and wrote the poem to it. I wanted to make sure, though, that as they were asking me for this, that they were asking for the true essence of the woman and not the commercial, over-sexualized woman.
It ain't a if, it's a win. We gotta win. Nothing but W's, let's get it in. Build a fortress that won't blow in the wind. He said if I get a deal, I cut them off and said when you build you, they gon' beg for a deal. Whoa. Still ain't in a Range Rover, but I came closer to that feeling right before the hangover. Without sending chorus, garage attacks and swift with nobody using. I give like I'm getting heated. We out there, why ain't nobody using it. I'm thinking about it right.